Hi, good morning, everyone. This is Belinda Brown with Equanimity Executive. I am a woman success expert, and today I will have as a guest in our Woman Empowered series, Andrea Jepson. I am really pleased to have her because I have met her about 6 months ago, and we had a great connection at a women event. And Andrea works for SE Wealth Management with Merrill Lynch, and she is a financial advisor. She is an excited woman, and she had an amazing career, and I want to talk about this a little bit with you. Actually, she is now in her second career after 20 years working as a lighting technician, where she was traveling the world with different bands, and she will talk about this and her transition to wealth management. And I would like to welcome Andrea today and thank her for being with us. Hi, Andrea.
Hi, thank you very much for the opportunity. I always enjoy speaking with you.
Yes, I know we had great conversation, and we are still working together on other conversation interested and related to women.
Yeah.
So today I would like you to talk about your transition and how today you are involved in wealth management and specifically with women.
Okay. Well, like you said, I started my career many years ago. I started as a lighting technician working for live events, which eventually moved into working for music bands and traveling all the world. And I was a roadie, and it was a lot of fun, but it was a very, very consuming career. I traveled most of the time. I was home very little and had very little time for myself, for hobbies, for anything really other than work. And so I realized that that was not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So I decided it was time to make a change, and that was very scary and hard. But I thought it was very necessary. I mean, I really could not see myself doing that job for another 30 years. And so I just started doing some research and reading. I took a Myers-Briggs test, and it said that I should either go into the financial services field or become a test pilot. And I thought, well,
Wow.
I don't think that test pilot is for me. So let's let's explore this financial services idea. So since I had not completed college the first time around, that meant that I had to go back to school. And so that was an adventure in and of itself. Going to school, going to college as an adult is such a different experience. You learn a lot more. You study so much harder, and I was a much more successful student the second time around than I was the first time. Because I knew why I was there, and I knew what I wanted to get out of it and where it could really take me. So I went back to school, and I graduated and interviewed with many companies, and it was a very difficult choice to try and find a firm that I felt was going to invest in me as much as I was investing in me. So I was happy that I got the offer that I did get, and I'm very pleased with my position now. And it has been, and still is, a long journey. Starting a second career when you're in the middle of your life and most of your peers are buying, they're living in houses that they own, and, they're very established financially. It was difficult to really take a step back and to understand I was not doing something that was going to make me happy in the long term, and I needed to make a very, very big change.
Good. Good. And I want just to to go back to something that you have, said regarding going back to school. I know that many women are challenged at some point in their life, and they know that they want, to make a change, and they find out what they want, to do. And for you, it was going to the financial, realm. And
Hmm.
we sometimes feel that because we didn't, succeed the first time going to college, that it will be the same thing. We are making an assumption. And
Hmm.
it's hard because it's a big financial investment as well. And I think that I want, to cheer you up for having made the decision to go back to
Hmm.
school. And I totally understand it because I went back to school when I was 28. Same thing. The first time, it's not that I didn't want to make it. I had other priorities and I had, to work. And at 28, I just decided to go back to work, and I was really, really successful as well as a student because I knew why I was there and what I wanted to get out of it, and it works, and it's really an interesting experience. So thank you very much for sharing this with us.
You're welcome. Thank you. It was quite the experience, right?
Yes, it was. It was. So, tell me a little bit, more about how you lived, this transition, because I know that at some point you realized that it was not good enough for you to tour and to do what you were, doing for 20 years. And how did you lived this, transition psychologically, mentally, intellectually? How did it go?
It started when I really started to realize that the men that were doing the very same job, or even that were kind of a rung below me on the ladder, were making more money than me.
Mm-hmm.
And when I asked for the same wage, I got laughed at. And as you can imagine, I didn't appreciate that very much.
Totally understandable.
Right? So I that was really one of the biggest triggers to, wow, I'm really not going to get very far in this
Mhm,
career, at least not as far as I wanted to get. I had some opportunities that were kind of taken away from me. I had encountered a couple of things that, you could have interpreted it many ways. Maybe I wasn't the right person for the job. Maybe it was personality conflict. Maybe I was not being given the opportunity for less desirable reasons.
mhm,
But the point was, I wasn't getting the opportunities and I wasn't getting the pay that I wanted. So I
mhm,
thought, okay, I'm not going to fight this fight to possibly not ever get where I want forever. That
mhm,
sounds awful. And it took me probably 5 years to get from the point of, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life, to, well, what am I going to do about it?
mhm,
It took research. It took, fiddling around online and digging around in job sites, because when you are talking about changing a career, when for all intents and purposes, you don't really have a completed education. So I was going to have to go back to school if I was going to go into any professional
mhm.
field at all.
Yes.
Uh, and at that point, it's kind of like the opportunities are endless, which can be daunting.
Mhm,
And that can be one of those, as women, I think when there's so much information available to us, we feel like we have to explore everything, and it can paralyze us a little bit. So I thought, okay, well, I'm not going to think about that. I'm just going to think about how am I going to afford to quit my
mhm,
job and go back to school. So I started looking at my finances, and they were not awesome. So instead of doing what I had done many times and calling my mom and saying, what do I do? I
mhm,
called my mom and I said, how do I figure out what to do? And she gave me some ideas, some financial websites to go to that have, little free or close to free online classes on how you can learn about what is a mutual fund, or how you can
mhm,
learn about this, that, and the other thing in the financial field. And I loved it. And I went, huh, well, this is kind of cool. Maybe I should do this. you
Hmm.
know. So my search kind of did stop there. And it was after that that I took the Myers-Briggs test because I thought, okay, am I just taking the easy way out and, taking the first thing that comes along? Well, no, there was something to it. So I gathered up every little bit of guts that I had and I proclaimed my tour that I was on in 2007, which
Yes.
was Beyonce. We had been around the globe twice. I was
Hmm.
exhausted. And I said, that's it. I'm not getting on another tour. I'm going to figure out how to make this happen. So I started working locally. I was in Las Vegas at the time. And the first couple tries of shows that I did locally, they were big shows that consumed all my time.
Hmm.
And so that doesn't work. You can't have all your time consumed by work and go back to school. So I changed jobs several times in 1 year, which for me was a
Unusual.
little rough.
Hmm.
It was like, wow, I'm why do I keep quitting my job?
Hmm.
That was, but keeping kind of the eye on the prize that the idea here is to get back to school and to get a new path carved. It's you it took it took understanding that sometimes you're going to panic and
Hmm.
sometimes you're going to think, oh, what have I done now?
Yes.
And let yourself panic for a minute, but don't dwell on it, and then just take a big, deep breath and say, no, I'm in control of my future. I'm in control of my life. I am the only person that is responsible for what my life will be. And this is what we have to do right now. You look in the mirror and you talk in we's and us's, right?
Let me,
This is what we're going
interrupt
to
you.
do.
Yeah, let me interrupt you here because I think that you have, shared many, many tips for women that are amazing. And this is what I am, doing actually with the women that I'm working with. It's that at some point you have, to take, responsibility for your future and not dwell into the difficulties. It's an easy way, and I think that we are all doing it, and it's I think healthy to do it, but just for a
Hmm.
while. And after that, you have, to get the impulse and to take, responsibility for yourself. It's about, career, but it's also about your personal life. When you are in a relationship that doesn't work anymore, take responsibility and try to envision what you want instead of to focus on what you don't want anymore, and see the prize, see
Hmm.
the end of the tunnel, and see the light at the end of the tunnel, and focus on this, light, instead of to focus on what's not working. And you mentioned as well that you change, many times of work, because I think that you are in the transition, trying to stay more local, to be able to start over and to go
Hmm.
back to school. And I have, seen that a lot with my client, where within, the 2 years before they decide to make the change, they see themselves being unstable because
Hmm.
they are just, trying to get out of what was difficult for them, and what was, their comfort zone. And still, staying either in the same industry or either in the same kind of environment, and it doesn't serve them anymore. And at one point it just, break through. So this is, wonderful, and I am glad that you were able, to talk to yourself in the mirror and really to help yourself to have, the breakthrough, and being able to be who you are today,
Hmm.
as a professional, as a woman, and also to be successful in what you do.
Thank you. It was there were some rough times, and I think that that's just a part of life.
Hmm.
We have to be able to make the tough decisions. I mean, we have to really be able to evaluate what it is that we need
Hmm.
and how to best go about it, and to be okay with making mistakes and to be okay with not being the expert. And to sometimes you just got to put on your boots and march
Hmm.
and do something. And if it's wrong, you'll figure it out and you'll fix it. And, sometimes it's tough to really wage forward, but I think that it's important that we just, yeah, like you said, take responsibility for our own futures.
Hmm.
It's
Yes.
very important.
Yes, it is, and I think that it's the most difficult thing to do because it's scary when we have been in a work or in a situation for so long. We feel so much in control, and getting out of our comfort zone, we feel that we will lose this, but actually we are gaining even more. Um, I don't want to say control, but mastery about ourselves and what we want and really what we want to accomplish. So let me ask you this now, Andrea. What do you think makes you a successful woman today?
A combination of a whole lot of things. I have wonderful role models.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, my mother and her mom before her are exceptionally strong women. Uh, Knowing the difference between when to take no as an answer and when to not take no as an answer,
Mm-hmm.
I
Yes.
think is probably one of the best things that I learned. And it's from them that I learned that you take responsibility for yourself. You are accountable for what you do and how it affects those around you. And, you know, it, I think having great role models like that have really done really a lot of good for me. Um, I also think that just the way that my path has been, that I've been very independent all along. Um, I've, when you, in my previous career, we would go, a tour would happen and then it would end and then you start a new one. That's a whole different bunch of people.
Mm-hmm.
So you spend 6 or 8 months with a big group of people and then it ends. And it's kind of like moving. Every
Yes.
time that a tour ends, it's kind of like moving. It's like all your friends go away and then you get a new tour and you get a whole new bunch of folks that you're going to hang around with for the next 6 months. And you have to figure out how to make those relationships work, whether personally care for the individuals, or
Mm-hmm.
want to be friends or like them, I guess you should say. It's
Yes.
almost irrelevant. You
Mm-hmm.
have to live on the bus with your team, and you have to work together, and you have to accomplish this common goal every day. No matter what city you're in, no matter what country you're in, you've got to work together and accomplish this goal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the relationship building skills that come from that and the team building skills that came from that contribute a lot to just an ability to understand people. I installed shows anywhere from all over the United States and Canada to Ethiopia and
Mm-hmm.
Russia. And, at the end of the day, we all just want to get along. We
Yes.
all just want to have somebody to eat dinner with and have a nice conversation,
Mm-hmm.
and people just want to be respected. And so I think understanding that and knowing that, I think that helps a lot to just own it, be what you want to be. And I think that has, I'm not always strong. I definitely have my weak moments, but that's part of being alive, I think. And I
Yeah.
think being okay with the way things go and being, I like the word mastery that you used. I think that
Mm-hmm.
that's almost better than control, because we don't we don't control things. We understand them, we react to them. What a big part of what makes a person who they are and what defines their personality is how they respond to the things that happen to them, adverse or not.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that a lot of people kind of pigeonhole that phrase to how people respond to adversity, but it's not. It's how people respond to the good stuff too. It's how you
Yes,
respond to the stuff
definitely.
around you. When it's awesome, do you embrace it or do you stand back and go, admire from afar? Or, I think that, uh, yeah, I think that mastery is a great phrase to use there.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, mastery, it's really about letting go of the need to control everything and everyone around us, and it gives us, really the opportunity, like you said, to observe and to respond and to enjoy the moment instead of to try to make things happen, the way that you want. Life, it's good and bad events, and I don't, love, too much, the good and the bad words, but actually, it's how you can, explain, this. But we have sequential events in our life, and we have always, the choice to respond to it the way that will, serve us, even if it's a bad situation, even if it's something complicated. We always have, the choice, in my perspective, to respond. We don't have any control on the event itself, but on how way to respond and to take the best of the situation if we can, if it's a situation where you can, see your best, but at least not, to stay focused on a difficult, events that will limit us, to move forward.
Right.
You talk about what was one of the things that made you successful, and you talk about, role models, and I have, heard that a lot. But I have also heard a lot of women telling me that they didn't have, role models, and that they had to become one for people around them because they felt that it was their mission and purpose in life was to really
Mhm.
empower others and try to bring something to the community or to the people that surrounded them. So this is a really important, thing, and many of our different guests talk about, these, role models that were so important for their success. And you mentioned as well your ability to connect because you were living in a bus with people
Mhm.
from different, backgrounds, and definitely with, the job that you do today with, wealth management and all the um, maybe misunderstanding or misconception about uh, wealth management and what it is today. It's really help you to connect with people and to meet people where they are with their finance. And finance, uh, it's really an emotional tie that we have, with money. And I can, talk about this personally because we had this conversation several times. But you mentioned that it's certainly something that you have to overcome to be able to touch people and to connect with them in the way that they will finally be open to talk about wealth management and money and investment and everything that seems scary about it. So
Mhm.
I just wanted to notice that. So uh, do you want, to talk about this for a little while about, women and wealth and money?
Well, I just think that it's important that we keep in mind that women and men are different.
Hmm.
And I know we all know that and we all talk about that a lot. But I think really probably there's a couple of things that make that really important. One is that women have a tendency to move in and out of the workforce to care for others, be it our children or our parents or both. And because of that, over our lifetimes, we earn less,
Hmm.
which inhibits our ability to save for the future and reach our long-term goals. So I think that we as women just need to be aware that that is an impact. And we need to plan for that as well. If we want to be in a position where we can care for our parents in the future, or care for our kids long term. Some families like to have. I don't have children myself, so I don't have firsthand experience in that. But I know that it is becoming more and more common for kids to live at home even into their early 30s. That is
Mm-hmm.
a financial burden, and it's not just a financial burden to the women, but to the family as a whole. Um, but I just think that it's important to make sure that that is considered in the planning process. It's also very important to consider in the planning process that women generally on average live longer than men. And so we need to be careful that we don't keep the women and wealth management conversation to ourselves as women. Make sure that the men in our lives understand that, at the end of the day, we may be left holding the bag.
Yes.
So if the men are the key planners and are the ones with the relationships and the know-how about the money in the family, that's fine. But the women in the family need to be aware. At the
Mm-hmm.
very, very least, they need to at least know who their advisors are, have a relationship with their advisors, feel comfortable with them, understand what is happening, how things are working. They don't need to know every little detail. I know we love to know every little detail, but we need to know enough so that when the unfortunate does happen, that we're okay, that that's
Mm-hmm.
not one more thing that we need to be, really concerned about. Like, wow, okay, so our checks have been coming in to his name for the last, I don't know how many years, and now he's gone. How do I get the money to pay the bills? You
Exactly.
know, so I think it's important to make sure that we're included.
Mm-hmm.
If nothing else, make sure that we're included. But we do have different things. We're more concerned, I think, about becoming a burden. We don't as women. I think it comes from so many of us have been caregivers at some point in our lives that we don't want to burden somebody else with having to take care of us.
Mm-hmm.
So we're more concerned about you know things like long-term expenses becoming a problem for somebody else, or just any kind of financial burden. And we also have more of a tendency to have a desire to be philanthropic in some way, shape, or form. And all those things take planning, and it all comes out in conversation. I think that the most important thing when you're speaking with an advisor is that you feel like your advisor understands what it is that you're communicating, and
Exactly.
if they are listening,
Mm-hmm.
and you know that doesn't mean they are going to agree with everything you say, but you need to make sure you can communicate well with your advisor. And I think, and there it is again, communication, relationships, being able to understand one another,
Mm-hmm.
very important in all walks, and no matter what we do, I think.
Yes, definitely. And I really thank you for sharing that, with us because I am, working with many women that do not care about, money because they feel that they have, to give it away or to care first about others. And I think that those compassionate, women just forget at some point to take care of themselves because compassion, it's not only toward others, it's also toward us, and many of us we forget about this, and at one point in our life we can find ourselves in a really difficult situation if we don't plan for it and if we don't include ourselves in this caregiving plan that we have for our entire life. So I think that it's really critical for any woman today to include in their life just short period of time where they can, have a financial advisor, but also where they can, take care of themselves from other perspective, so emotional, perspective, mental perspective, and psychological perspective. They need time for themselves, and that's why at some point in their life, and I am working with women between 35 and 55, they just feel empty and drained, and it's because at some point they just forgot to replenish their level of energy to be able to sustain the pace that they have um, adopted for 20 plus 30 years. So thank
Mhm.
you for sharing this. So another question that I have for you and that I am asking all my guests, it's about women, and you mentioned earlier that um, you wanted to transition because you could not get what you deserved and what you expected to get from your previous career. It was one of the points that you had, and that it might have a connection with the fact that you were a woman. So do you
Mhm.
think that women can have it all without a fight in our society today?
I think that that is a very tricky question.
Yep.
And the reason is because it depends on each woman's definition and even ability to define what it means to her to have it all.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think that if I had stayed in that field, I think that I could have fought the big fight and reached the levels that I had hoped for, but I didn't want to.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was more important to me to say, or to recognize, I guess, that this is going to be an uphill battle all the way.
Mm-hmm.
I may be able to make a change, and I do feel like in my many years in that career that I did change a few minds about the roles of women and what women can do and things along those lines. But I think that the battle would have been brutal and
Mm-hmm.
long, and I didn't want to. And to me, recognizing that is part of being able to have it all.
Perfect.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
I want to be financially secure.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's having it all. I want to be able to take vacations. I want to be able to have a nice home, have a nice car. I want to not have to worry about money.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I don't like living check to check. I never have. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't wish that on anybody. I mean, but that's just from me. Some people love the kind of freedom and whatnot that comes with not being tied down, but that's not me.
Mm-hmm.
So it comes from the ability to define.
Perfect.
And if you are defining having it all off of somebody else's definition, you will struggle, struggle, struggle. You have to define it for yourself, which is harder than it sounds. I really think it is. Um, I read so many articles and hear so many interviews about just this topic, women talking about trying to have it all.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say 98% of those articles and interviews involve a professional woman having a family and a husband and a dog and a house and a yard and etc. Well, that may be the stereotypical image of what having it all is, but that doesn't even, to me, that doesn't make sense. You know, I, it's defined so differently for me.
Yes.
And that's okay. And
Oh,
that's
yes.
important to understand that the ideal is not the ideal that is placed upon us is
Mm-hmm.
not our own personal ideal.
Yes, exactly. And this is, what has been, really complicated to explain to many women when we meet them in different, scenarios. It's to understand that the definition of success or having it all, it's standardized and it's a stereotype, and that today we are not the same. We are all different, and we are actually all unique. And I think that we um, should all think about what is success for us. What does it mean to have it all for us based on our values, based on what we want to accomplish, based on the mission that we are giving ourselves in this world, and not based on what we are saying seeing on television, or what we were taught in schools or in our different societies. and you have traveled all over the world, and I have been, in several different, countries and regions in the world, and having it all for people, it's different as well from one
Yeah.
culture to another. Meaning that we have to question this because we just become the shadow of ourselves, and by trying to meet those standards that have been established for us, and we tend to make ourselves miserable and unhappy. So I really want to congratulate you for really being able to um, define what was success for yourself, and to know yourself so well that you're able to identify what will make you a successful person, without stress, and at peace with who you are, and not having to live by other people's rules. So thank you so much, Andrea.
Thank you.
Do
It's
you want
a
to add
very
any
beautiful.
do you want to add any comment, or can I move forward in the interview?
I think we can move forward. I think that you've summed that up nicely. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So now that we have, talk about, your background, and that we have, talk about how you ended up, being a successful, woman in your role as a financial advisor, and supporting, women and men as well, like you mentioned it earlier. What would be, the tip or advice, really something that people could, take for themselves, and they'd start, to implement today to be able to succeed effortlessly.
Um, don't give up and don't be
Mm-hmm.
afraid of change. Plans are plans are there to get you started.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's really important to be flexible. You obtain your goals, or you set your goals. You define them and you think, this is what I want to do. You know, I want to drive this car, or I want to live in this neighborhood, or I want to have this job, or I want to have this number of kids, or whatever it is that your goal is. You set your goal and you set a plan on how to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And then life happens. And no matter what happens, the world keeps on spinning and moving forward, whether you're ready for it or not.
That's
And you
true.
kind of got to, yeah, you've kind of got to be ready to just roll with it, and sometimes we get stubborn and it's hard and it kind of, it's no fun and it kind of stinks. But you got to be able to take a deep breath, reevaluate, adjust your plans. It doesn't mean you have to change your end goal,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily. Sometimes it does, but that's okay too, you know. But I think being flexible, being willing to change, but being determined.
Mm-hmm.
I I really think that's it.
Okay, so to sum it up, I think that what you talk about, it's about having a vision or a goal, and sticking with it, and being determined to make it happen, whatever happen in your life. And if the plan has to change, just be flexible, and just tweak it a little bit to make sure
Yeah.
that you are still staying on the road. So that's wonderful. So, Andrea, I would like, you to share some information about how we can, reach out to you, because I think that many women that would have, seen this video wants to be in touch, with you. So, what would be the best way to connect with Andrea and to talk about your transition, but also about what you do and about wealth management?
Well, probably the easiest way would be to just send me an email,
Yes.
which I think we can attach that at the end.
Videos. Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. It
Okay.
will be attached. Yes.
So yeah, we'll attach that on there. And that that really is. I
Okay.
like direct, and I do. It does seem that calls get missed, and we can play phone tag so much that I kind of think that email is actually more efficient sometimes in that first connection. But I love meeting people face to face, and to me, this is close enough,
Mm-hmm.
for people who live across the country and whatnot. I'm not afraid to get on a video chat or something like that. I'm more than happy to. I'm on Skype as well, and on
Perfect.
this is Google Hangout. So I, I'm always happy to talk to people and meet people. I love meeting people.
Mm-hmm. You are, being really an inspiring, woman. I have, met you 6 months ago, and we had, so many interesting, conversation about women, and that's why I wanted to have, you here today to be able, to share your experience, to share your success, to share your energy, and to share your perspective about how women can succeed today, because I think that many women in the world today feel that they have to struggle, and I know that it's something that um, has been part of our life, and one day we just realize that actually fighting it's not the only option. You can fight for something, and at some point you just realize that you take responsibility for your own success and your future, and you start to build something that will make you happy, fulfilled, secure, and inspiring as well. So I really want to thank you, Andrea. I will close this interview, and I really appreciate that you took the time this morning, knowing that we had also something scheduled last week, and unfortunately technology was not with us.
Yeah, it
And
happens.
so thank you very much, for watching us. You will have, all the information regarding this Google Hangout and the contact information of Andrea if you want to contact her. And this was the Woman Empowered series, and we had as a guest Andrea Jepson. Thank you so much, Andrea.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too. Have a good day. Bye bye.
Bye bye.